In previous segments, we've seen the tile laying process and how to cut tile edges. Now the room is nearing completion, and in this segment, we'll grout the floor, putting the finishing touches to the job. Grout is a finishing plaster which is used to fill the gaps between the tiles. Today we're using a powdered grout, which is mixed with water to form a mortar-like mix. I'm using half of the bag to mix up the amount that I've judged will cover the floor without ending up with half a pail of unused material. Mixing instructions are printed on the bag, and as I'm using a half bag, I'll also use half the amount of water that's recommended for a full bag. There are various mixing tools available, but this is a small mix, so a camping spade is my choice. It's cheap and light and doesn't have to be plugged into a socket, so I don't have to fiddle with electric cables. If you use more water, the mix will be more runny, or by adding more powder, the mix will become firmer, so you have control over the final product. Once the mixture is at the consistency that you require, let it stand for about 10 minutes to settle. While I'm waiting, I'll use a vacuum cleaner to suck up any small chips of tile that may be lying in the gaps.
Wipe off the bottom of the pail with a clean rag before taking it inside. Well, we're ready to apply the grout. This is the time when you're going to be kneeling for a long period of time, so give your back and legs a good stretch before beginning. Dampen the area that you're going to work on with a little water, applied with a rag or a tiler's sponge. The grout float that I'm using has a base of gum, with rounded corners on one end and square corners at the other end. The grout can be removed from the pail with a small spade, or the end of the float. The objective here is to get the grout into the gaps between the tiles, and between the wall and the tiles. The most common method is to spread the grout over the surface area, and push it into the gaps with the bottom of the float. You can do the job using the longer side of the float for speed, or the shorter side, which gives you more leverage, and is less tiring on the wrist. The consistency of the mix now comes into play. If it's too thick, you'll have difficulty getting the grout into the gaps. Too watery, and it'll run all over the place. Use the manufacturer's recommendations, and you won't go wrong. As you move along, remove as much of the mortar from the floor as you can by scraping the edge of the float diagonally across the tile at a 90-degree angle to the floor. A good float will remove 90% of the grout, making cleanup later a lot easier. Then run the rounded edge of the float along each line to shape the grout. Generally, the grout should have a slight U shape. Its depth should be about 1/8 of an inch below the tile at its deepest point. After about 10 minutes, the grout on the surface of the tile will have to be removed. A grout sponge is great for this. It should be slightly wet but not dripping wet. Run over each of the lines to shape and smooth them, and then wipe off the excess grout. The sponge should be rinsed regularly to get rid of the excess grout. Most importantly, change water often. The secret to cleanup is clean water. If you allow the water to become full of grout, you're just spreading more grout over the floor. That's it. Apply the grout, clean off the surface, and repeat on another section. As I move about the room, I aim for 2 or 3 rows of tile at a time, and the speed picks up considerably. It's very important to use a quality grout float to apply the mortar. The float makes an enormous difference. A cheap float will make the job 3 times longer. Speak to an assistant at the store when you buy the float. They'll often give you good advice. As you progress, the grout in your pail will begin to dry. This is not desirable, so add a little water and give it a good mix every 20 minutes or so to keep it fresh. You'll pick up speed as the job progresses. Try different methods and experiment with slightly thinner or thicker grout mixes. Seeing that you're kneeling so much, use a sponge floor pad or knee guards to prevent ending up with bruises that'll take 3 or 4 days to stop aching once you've tiled the room. I know I've said it in part 1 of this series, but it's worth a repeat. Now, if you've watched the previous parts of the tiling series, you'll know that I like inventing ways of making the job easier. Kneeling and going over and over the same area with a sponge didn't make any sense to me, so I tried out a broom sponge, and I'm happy to say that it works fantastically. Dip it into a pail of water, squeeze out the water, and wipe up the grout while standing up. Much better than kneeling all day to do the job. The $16 that I spent on the broom sponge has probably saved me about $70 or $80 in chiropractor fees. Well, my room is grouted, and after curing for about 2 hours, the haze can be wiped off the tiles with a dry cloth. 24 hours later, give each grout line a couple of coats of sealant to waterproof, and when that's dry, wash the floor, and it'll look great. You'll have all the convenience of easy, clean, long-lasting tile.